Hi everyone, welcome to Tales of Dread. Now for our last Halloween special. We have one creature to look at, that's the werewolf. Now give this video a like and be sure to subscribe. Now sit back and enjoy. This happened in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, in 1999, when I was a freshman in high school. I rented a townhouse in an area next to a small neighborhood called Cabana Colony. My best friend Wayne lived there, and we always had sleepovers and explored the deep woods that surrounded the back half of his neighborhood. No one knows how far down it went, but we thought it was great. Nothing ever did happen. There were just rumors that a dog-like animal lived in the woods. But we thought that their parents were just trying to keep us from getting lost. We paid it, then. No problem, we've been in there before and all we found were people's old paintball sets. We've even seen a homeless person's tent with a bunch of pornographic magazines inside. We thought it was hilarious, but we were too scared to go inside the tent. During the summer of 1999, I slept at Wayne's house one night. That day was hot and sticky. Wayne and I were back in the woods again, looking for something fun to do with our flashlights and pocket knives. Maybe we could find a cool fort, a tree house, or something else cool that would be ours and that we wouldn't have to share with anyone else that night. We went deeper than we ever had before. The time was Prime Minister, it was nighttime. We got a little lost, okay, we got really lost, but we didn't panic because we thought we could try to go backwards to get back to the streets. We could hear branches breaking all around us. We couldn't figure out which way it came from. We heard it then? The scream. It was noisy. I know for sure that whatever it wasn't far away and could have smelled us. We kept walking, but slowed down so as not to draw more unwanted attention to ourselves. Then we saw the dead body. A dead body was lying in the dirt about 20 feet in front of us. It was Gary, a mean guy in the neighborhood who had dropped out of high school. The big guy was always picking on the little kids. There was blood everywhere. His chest was torn open, leaving a large hole. His heart was no longer inside of him. Wayne leaned over and threw up, and I grabbed a nearby tree to keep from passing out while I tried to catch my breath. "Oh my God, dude, Gary's dead," I said. Then I saw the eyes and the brush a little ways ahead of us, just staring at us. Its eyes shine like amber and watch us like a snake watches its prey. We've been scared, and we've seen a wolf head with dark black hair and pointy ears just staring at us like it's guarding its food or something. I wasn't thinking straight, so I just yelled to Wayne, "Run!" And we turned around and ran as fast as we could back the way we came. I don't think we had ever run that fast before. We got back to the street where we left our bikes, which was lucky. The dog that turned into a werewolf was real, no matter what you want to call it. It didn't follow us or try to catch us. God bless you, I really think it was just guarding its food, because if it hadn't been, it would have attacked us or followed us. We never went back into those woods again, so that's not a surprise. My name is George, and I'm 10 years old. My friends Zach and Robert and I are all in the same grade, and we all go to the same school in Alpine, California. We were having a sleepover at my house, which had a big backyard that went into the woods and an above-ground pool. Small black square, small black square, small black square, small black square. We were going to have pizza and soda, watch a movie, or even just play Resident Evil on my PlayStation that night. In the words of Ernest P. Worrell in the Halloween movie Ernest, "Scared Stupid," we were in the forest line looking for the high ground, which meant the perfect tree house for our future fort. We thought we had found the perfect tree to start building our new forts as the sun was going down. We were very happy because we didn't have to climb too high to bring the wood, boards, nails, and other things. We were scared out of our minds by a growl. As we turned to see where it came from, we saw a creature that looked like a wolf running on its back, hunched over like a person, across the grass. It grabbed a small animal and ran into the bushes. Everything moved so quickly. We didn't even know what kind of animal was needed. I don't know if it was a baby deer or a coyote. We didn't know. We were too shocked to care much at the time, so we all huddled together and did nothing while we waited. The forest was dead quiet. We have to go back to our house. I spoke quietly to the others. Robert didn't say anything in response to Zach's nod. He was in shock, which was completely normal. We walked slowly through the woods toward my house. As we did, we heard howls from whatever animal the wolf creature had caught, and it sounded like it was in a lot of pain. I felt bad for the animal because I thought it was being torn apart or eaten alive. We finally got back home, locked the doors behind us, and ran inside to tell my mom what had happened. She didn't believe a word we said, so she laughed it off as a joke and said, "That's what you get for being in the woods after dark." Wow. Thank you, Mom. I'm Karina, and I live in a small town in the country called Halal. A pond in the Mexican state of Puebla. Skinwalkers and witches who use black magic are said to be able to change into wolves. This area has a lot of bad things, but I haven't seen any proof that any of these stories are true. I'm telling this story in case I go missing, which means I'm already dead. My friends and I were walking from town back to our house. Out here, there's only a dirt road that cars use because there's no pavement or sidewalks. To say the least, it's pretty wild. Small black square, 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 small black square. Walking home takes more than 2 hours, so it was already dark. When we were about 30 meters away, we saw this black monster that looked like a werewolf in the woods to our left. Small black square, small black square, small black square. It was howling and running through the woods, destroying everything it came across on its way to us. We all screamed, and I dropped the sweater I was holding because it was so humid that night, so we all ran back to town. It would have been stupid for them to split up in the woods. That's just suicide. I thought, lucky for us, a farmer's truck was coming toward us, and we jumped into the bed of his truck and told him to step on it. It was a big deal. And we said, "There's a wolf coming." If he hadn't done what we told him, the werewolf would have caught up to his truck and killed all of us. We got back to town later, and I stayed at my aunt's house, where she ran a taxi business in the village's tourist area. I'm writing this in the room she doesn't use. Now that I think about it, I didn't pick up my sweater after the meeting. As the creature squeaks into the window frame in my room, it has a black claw that reaches the edge of the window and bright red eyes that look right at me. I am a 37-year-old white man who lives in the Boise-Nampa Meridian area of southern Idaho. We just moved here from California because it's too expensive to live there, it's too crowded, and their laws are stupid. We had just bought a house in Nampa, and after moving to northern Idaho, we went on our first camping trip in the mountains. We knew there were bears and coyotes in the area, but we didn't pay attention. We love and care about nature, so don't worry about us. When we got to the Beauty Creek campground, we set up our tents. We chose a spot farther away from the other campers because we like our own space. We had just cooked dinner on the grill, had some s'mores, and drank a few beers. Later, I had to go to the bathroom, but I didn't want to walk downhill to the pit toilet, which smelled like poop. I took a chance and went into the woods. I did take a flashlight with me, but I went alone, and no one knew where I went to pee because it was 2 in the morning and everyone else was asleep. I was doing my thing against a big tree when I heard a howl in the distance. I've heard coyotes before, but this one was different. This one sounded different. Also, it didn't sound like it was too far away, which sent chills down my spine. I then saw the beast's head about 25 feet to my right. It was snarling and drooling, and its mouth was full of sharp teeth. This thing was tall, maybe 6 or 7 feet tall. It looked like a man standing on its back legs. But it wasn't a person. This scared me to death, so I closed my zipper and ran back to camp, calling out for my wife. She rubbed her eyes as she came out of the tent. I cried, "Wolf, get the keys and go to the truck." Now, she puts the phone in flight mode, grabs the keys, and runs after me to my truck. We run as fast as we can until we reach the highway. We never went back to get our stuff. I know I cried wolf, but I know in my heart that it wasn't a wolf. We never went back there again I went through this earlier this year. I don't know how to explain it. I'm from Salem, Oregon, and every once in a while I like to go hunting, mostly for deer and bighorn sheep. I will never forget that particular Sunday evening. Only Ruski, my beagle, and I were there. We were in the woods just a few miles from town. Even though the sun was going down, I thought I had at least 20 or 30 minutes before I had to turn around and go back to the car. It was a normal night with nothing special about it. In fact, it was pretty dull. Not even a simple rabbit had gotten away from me. It was a little sad that day in the distance. Then I saw something big and black with yellow eyes staring right back at me. I thought it was a black bear at first because they live in the area, but it was much bigger than a black bear. This thing was at least 7 feet tall, and from what I could tell, its ears were pointed. It was pretty hard to tell for sure. It was about 30 yards away and hiding behind some bushes and tree branches, but it just kept looking at me. That was the most scary part. Most animals are very protective of their space. Or else they just run away. This thing did nothing but stand there and look. It scared me, and I didn't know what to do at the time. Should I raise my rifle or slowly move away and walk back to my truck? It was getting dark. I went with the second choice. I slowly turned around and walked as quietly as I could back to the truck. That's when I heard it. The screaming. It was the scariest thing I'd ever heard, even though I'd heard wolves and coyotes before. I started to run a little faster without trying to be seen. Luckily, I made it back to my truck without getting caught. I got in, turned the key, and got the hell out of there as fast as I could. I still don't know what happened. I've never gone back into the woods, or at least not that far. I don't know what I saw, and you can call me crazy all you want, but it looked a little bit like a werewolf. It looked very much like it. I won't go back there ever again. Small black square, 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 small black square. When I was in high school, I was walking home from a friend's house. At the time, I lived in Idaho Falls, which is in the country, if you get what I mean. I was cutting through the woods on a dirt path to get to my house faster when I thought I heard something strange. Besides the sounds of howling, whatever was in those woods was big. I heard a lot of moving sounds and broken branches. I was terrified. I started running as fast as I could on the dirt trail in the direction of my house. I knew at the time that I shouldn't have taken that shortcut, but I've taken it 100 times before and never had this happen. I didn't have to run far to get home because I only lived about 15 minutes away on foot. I made it back to my house, which was a relief, but not before I looked over my shoulder to see what it was. Show yourself to me between the trees. It was big, black, and had dark red eyes. Those eyes will stay with me forever. I'm from Alpena, Michigan, which is about as far north as you can get right now. You've probably heard about the Michigan dogman. Well, at first I didn't believe it. I thought it was just a rumor, you know, a local legend or myth. Then I saw it in the woods. I go camping a lot because I'm in the Boy Scouts. I spent most of my childhood as a. Anyway, it was me, my friends, and our camp counselors. We were all sitting around a fire, eating s'mores and hot dogs, and telling ghost stories when we all heard it, the distant howling. Somewhere in the trees that are all around us. At first, I thought it was a wolf, but it was too deep to be a wolf. Then we heard it again, but this time it was clearer. It seemed a little bit more likely. We were all scared, but we also kind of laughed it off. Our German shepherd, who was with the group, got scared, started barking, and ran into the woods. We never again saw the dog. They sent out a search team to find the dog, but they didn't find it. They said they never found him, but they did find blood, and if they looked hard enough, they might have even found his bloody leash hanging from a tree branch on a vine. Once everyone was back, the party could start. For safety, we all stayed together and huddled around the campfire. I'm sure I saw glowing eyes in the bushes far away, just staring at our camp. When I turned my head and pointed into the distance to get someone's attention to look that way, it was gone. Those eyes are no more. Now that we know about the rumors in this area, I know for sure that the one about the dogman is true. I come from a very small town in the country that you would have a hard time finding on a map. It is in Pennsylvania's northeast corner. I won't say the name of the city to protect your privacy. It was just like any other evening. I was drinking hot tea while sitting on my front porch. I usually do that in the evenings. I read a book while I sipped my tea. It makes me feel very calm. We are very close to the woods, so I happened to look at the tree line. I was sure I saw something in the distance that was very big, black, and had bright red eyes that were staring at me. I thought at first that I was making it up. So I paid it no mind. But when I blinked and squinted, I saw that the figure was still there, standing as still as a doorknob. Just looking at me. At first, I was frozen with fear because I didn't know what I was seeing. I thought it was just a wolf at first. We do have a few chickens and a few goats. I got up from my chair and went inside to get my gun to try to scare it away. When I got outside and looked across the street, the figure was gone. I looked around and saw nothing, but when I looked to my left in the far distance, I saw the figure again, just standing there. There's no way that thing could have moved that far in that short amount of time. When I just grabbed my rifle, it had been almost 10 seconds, so it was literally impossible. I wish there was a better way to show you what I mean. I went down the stairs and shot into the air to scare it away. It didn't work. It didn't do anything. It didn't care in the least. Most of the time, a shot will do the trick. This time, I pointed the gun at it even though I knew it was too far away to hit. Still, it was worth a shot, so I fired, but nothing happened. It didn't do anything. After a few seconds, it seemed to move its head to the side or twitch, and then it turned around, walked into the forest, and was gone. I don't know what it was, but I have a pretty good idea of what it could have been. but I know no one would believe me. So, I've kind of kept this to myself until now, and I understand if you think I'm crazy or just seeing things. I remember what I saw. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. Yes, I live in Florida. I won't say where I live because it's private, but it's close to the swamps. Now, I want to know if there are wolves or coyotes in Florida. Because I've been hearing these howls at night from my window, and it sounds like they're not too far from where I live. I always thought that wolves and coyotes lived in the mountains or forests, but out here it's more swampy. I haven't seen anything, but at night I hear strange noises that make me wonder if I'm crazy. Sometimes it's just a loud, crazy, deep howling. It sounds almost like a man, but it's hard to tell for sure. On other nights, it's a mix of that and the sound of something being torn apart. It happens almost every other night, and that's the scariest part. I could hear everything in every detail, and it's sickening. I want to tell you about something bizarre I saw a few weeks ago. I won't say where I live, but it's a rural farm region with plenty of fields and cattle grazing. I was heading home from work at 7 p.m. I recall glancing to my left and having to double-take because of the magnitude of the animal I saw, a gigantic wolf chasing borrowed cow. This wolf creature was moving on 2 feet but bent over with its arms folded inwards. About 20 feet away from a cow, it sprang up, landed, and pounced on the cow. Holy shit, this beast tore it up in 30 seconds or less. Never seen that much blood so fast. I stopped my automobile to watch because I couldn't believe its enormity. He looked more like a timber wolf than a mutant coyote, and it was huge. It could have rivaled a lion's size. This cow wasn't even 100 feet out into the field, so I got a clear view of the whole scenario. I couldn't see where the wolf ran from because there wasn't much clearing. I was more amazed than scared. I saw a predator kill and prey in minutes. This creature devoured and tore apart the cow. After a few seconds, I left since there was nothing else to see and I didn't want to be next. Okay, I'm writing to you because I want to tell you about an incident I had a few months ago. I wanted no thought. Crazy. After conducting investigation, I realize they are actual animals and others have had similar encounters. So I'll just tell you what occurred. My kitchen has a wide breakfast nook overlooking my neighbor's cornfield. It's great to wake up to crows soaring and the sun beaming. Evening came. I was chopping chicken for a stir-fry with my back to the window. I recall suddenly feeling watched. It's like feeling something amiss in your gut. I had goosebumps and felt off. Without thinking, my senses told me to turn around. I turned to check whether anyone was watching me. To my horror, a huge wolf head was within 10 feet from my breakfast nook window. I didn't notice the head at first, only the yellow eyes looking into my soul. Freezing. I observed the wolf's huge head. Nearly fell. I couldn't shout or move from astonishment. The sight scared me. When I saw it squatting and peering at me, I recognized it had a human-like body, hands and claws, and wasn't a dog or wolf. After 5 seconds, I fled to my bedroom, got my rifle, and prepared for combat. My dinky gun wouldn't hurt this animal. I had a gun. I hid in my bedroom for an hour or two until I was courageous enough to check the kitchen. What I saw became darker and disappeared. This item never acted aggressively or maliciously. It was intrigued and watched me like a predator watching prey, yet it never moved or blinked. It looked like an upright walking wolf with humanoid traits in the body. The visage had a wolf-like nose. It had no teeth and never snarled or made sounds. I never smelled it or knew it was observing me. No idea how long it watched me. I wondered how and why this existed. Where? After digging, I linked cornfields and dogma. I see. The descriptions match what I saw, I'd say. I'm thankful it never broke in or damaged me. Unknown. Perhaps it was casing my place. No way. My buddy has posted here. He had the Ozarks experience in one of your episodes. I've also had strange Ozarks encounters in Arkansas. I like 3 to 5 day trekking expeditions around the country. I love Ozarks. I adore the weather, landscape, and serenity. I no longer view the Ozarks that way. After what I observed, I've never had bizarre encounters with animals. Bigfoot, UFOs, etc. What I found shocked me, and I still can't describe it. I haven't visited the Ozarks in years. When I got there, I came to a place near a creek and smelled a horrible stink. Dead and decaying smelled. I dismissed it since animals die and there are predators like bears. The fragrance was so overpowering I had to investigate. 20 feet max. I smelled right. Not 20 feet. Was likely a black bear. I wasn't gazing at a dead black bear, but a damaged, torn apart one. Bear. This monster appeared fresh and predatory. I had trouble processing what I said. This black bear appeared enormous, so I'd suppose it was a full-grown male. What rips apart a giant male black bear in the woods? Bear's surroundings were smashed. It seemed tense. Happened. Fights, resistance. When do wolves rip apart a bear in nature, judging from the broken up ground? The bear wasn't eaten after being killed. This was pulled apart. I didn't notice any traces, but the kill appeared recent, despite the coagulated blood. This kill happened within 24 hours. I've hiked this area before, but reportedly a massive alpha predator killed the spare. It didn't appear like it was eaten, whatever killed it just tore it up and left it. Now, you tell me what animal did that, and I ran as fast as I could. Who knows what I saw? Please inform me, animal specialists. What kills a giant black bear but doesn't eat it, leaving its body crushed and torn? I'm baffled. I've hiked many places and never seen something so strange. I've seen animals ripped apart and devoured, but never just slain. You're welcome. We observed a dog-wolf hybrid beside my cousin's house this summer. My cousin lives outside of NYC. I forget the town's name, but he has a lovely house with a wide backyard and lots of wildness behind it. We grew up together on the West Coast. His career took him to the East Coast, where he's remained for a while. We still talk sometimes. He phoned me and said I wouldn't believe him, but he wanted to tell someone. I advised him to test me, and he said he's seen Bigfoot on his land for months. Since April, he said. Remember? In July, they've peeked in his windows, gone about his property, and made loud sounds at night. He doesn't know what else they might be and thinks they're Bigfoot. He knows I'm into weird stuff, but I've never been into Bigfoot. I didn't trust him, but he encouraged me to stay at his house for a week to visit because it's been years. He's rich. He paid my plane ticket, and I visited him. We had a lovely rekindling and a few delicious beers when he picked me up at the airport. He showed me his beautiful neighborhood. His house hosted a big supper. The next day, we'd go look for Bigfoot. I slept in the guest bedroom and felt nothing unusual. I thought he was jerking my chain because there was no Bigfoot material. The next day was cloudy, but we still wanted to see the backyard. It blew my mind. He didn't have the tools to cast footprints, but they were all over his backyard, a large open meadow with a few trees. He showed me the tree line and where he's been seeing them, and you could tell that a lot of the bush had been knocked down and ripped apart. The next days were dull. Even my cousin thought it was unusual and informed me there was Bigfoot activity, but he hadn't heard or seen anything. On day 5, we drank beer on his back porch. We saw it, I think. We got off topic. I don't recall what we both felt was incorrect. My cousin thought it was a Bigfoot, but he's never felt in danger from him. From where we stood, we could see the wood line and the out-of-woods steps. This is a two-legged huge wolf. My cousin and I were shocked when it walked out, paused, and glanced our way. After a few seconds he asked, "What's that?" After a few seconds, it turned and headed back into the trees. We couldn't see much detail, but it was huge and like a timber wolf on two legs. It was hunched and ugly. After a few minutes, the sensation of fear faded gone, and we never saw Bigfoot again. A few days later, I flew home. That was a month ago, and I've been checking on him. He hasn't seen the wolf-like creature or heard of Bigfoot since then. He's probably told B.F.R.O. to make poi castings. I've got something interesting. I hope they like it. God bless Gus. Without him, I'd be dog food. I moved to Texas in 1987. I wanted land in eastern Texas that wasn't bone dry like much of western Texas, but I can't recall the town. This property was outside a small town a while back. My wife and I were country driving when we saw an old ranch house. It featured a large front yard, land, rolling hills, trees, a pond, and few neighbors. Loved it. Observed. On the front porch was a first sale sign and property brochure. My wife and I investigated further. The houses outside looked great. Things were clean and ordered. My wife thought the asking amount was a deal, and I couldn't believe this gem of a property remained unclaimed. Millennials, we used payphones to make calls. When we returned, I was going to phone this broker and make an offer. I was pleased to locate a great property in our dream location. As we're leaving, we spent 30 minutes there. The driver of a beat-up old truck drives by. Is he old? He approaches carefully. We walk to our car. We said hello, and he said he lived nearby. He inquired what we were doing and spoke. I told him we found a wonderful property for sale and were interested in making an offer. Gus's pleasant, cheery, welcoming manner transformed to worried and concerned. My wife and I simply glanced at each other, so I asked him what was wrong. He was silent for a minute. He looked down, unsure what to say. He whispered that the previous owner had several land issues. He mentioned the land has enormous black wolves. He said they ate his cattle, stole one of his children, and tried to break into his house many times. He claimed police had been here several times, but owing to the threat, PD had categorized this region as a danger zone and not to answer calls from this property. I assumed he was lying. I've never seen someone so fearful as they spoke before. I told him animal control or a park ranger should have handled the situation. I thought he was attempting to scare us away. I assured him we realized he didn't want us as neighbors and that we wouldn't raise a disturbance. I assured him we're nice people who don't do foolishness. He interrupted me and stated our safety is paramount. These wolves aren't typical. He's seen them on his ranch, devouring his animals and wreaking damage. He said they're as large as bison and vicious. I was still dubious about what he had just spoken, but I felt the air alter. The power that was bursting around us with life and commotion quieted down. The goat's eyes watered as in a twisted horror film. Nervousness set in. He told us not to believe him. We left to be safe. The sun was up and everything was getting dirty. My wife and I didn't believe him at the time, but we felt unsafe standing there since anything might happen. As we walked back to the car, I felt like someone was watching us from the house or nearby meadows. I'm not sure. Gus hurried quickly to his car, fumbled with his keys, and left without a glance. My wife and I didn't look back. I wasn't going to bid on his property. Not after Gus's advice. Even though I didn't believe him, I was uncertain. I took the home one more look and felt dread like never before. Even though years have passed and I don't believe in fairy tales or monsters, my intuition told me to leave that spot. I guess there was more keeping me from bidding on the home. Probably good? I mean, who knows? I'm delighted he steered us in the proper direction. It was probably for our safety. Anyway,